Hello, good afternoon. I just wanted to give you a little go over the quiz, the second quiz here to give you some feedback. So remember, parabolas are not linear, right? I mean, they are either this way or this way. And the rate between, say, these 2 points versus these 2 points versus these 2 points, it's not always the same. Okay. That's why we find secant lines, because like the secant line here would have negative slope, here positive slope, right? It's constantly changing. So the format of these guys is you have a function, you have your A, your shift, you put your vertex here. So my vertex is right there. And remember, your shift on your X is always opposite. So +4, this would have to be whatever causes 0. So -4, -4. The Y is what it is, okay? Has to be squared because it's a quadratic. So don't forget that. And then you have a template. And remember, in algebra, we give you these for a reason. So if you're ever stuck in pre-calc, if you have an input and an output, you should probably substitute them in, because you have a function, you have input, output, functions have jobs. That's probably going to help you. All right. So what I did is I put my input here, my 2, and I put my output over here. Algebra wise, -2 squared is 4. These are glued together. 4 pairs of pants and a $5 meal do not make 9 of anything. Okay, this is 4 pairs of pants that cost $8, and this is another $5 meal, right? You can only add the money together if you know what these cost. Okay, so we're going to subtract the money over, get a -9. So I just did -5 to both sides, divide by 4. So now I know A. So then what you can do is just sub back in to your A. So right there, okay? And then you have your nice little equation. So the vertex is in there, but you have an X, you have this, because you have to have a spot for your input and your output, right? Because you want to use this formula. Now, I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to graph this on Desmos to check my answer to make sure I'm right, okay? So let me pause it and I'll grab Desmos quick. Okay, I went ahead and graphed my function. And notice if I forgot the squared, I'd catch it, because like that's a line. It's not a parabola. It's not curvy. And obviously it needs to be reflected. But I went ahead and plotted these points over here. And you can see this is on here, so is this. If I didn't plot them, if I got rid of this and this, you could just click on it, right, to, make sure. So like 4, 5, what was the other one? 2, -4. So you could just click as well, if I can land on it. But it's probably easier to plot it, but I can't land perfectly, but in theory I could. All right, let's look at the next question. All right, here's the second quiz question. Now on this, I would view this, and again, that's paint under my fingernail, but this is X, X, and Y, okay? And there's a river here. So it's kind of like perimeter, but you're missing a side. But X plus X is 2X, and this side is plus Y. That's going to be 4,000. Okay, so that's something you kind of know from your brain. Okay, perimeter idea is add up the sides, but we only add up those 3 sides. Solve for Y because you're going to sub it in. So to get rid of adding 2X, you would subtract 2X to both sides. All right. Another thing you should know in your brain is area is of a rectangle is length times width. So in this case, I'm going to use XY, sub in for the Y. So it's kind of like, here's a quarterback, here's a quarterback, here's a quarterback. I'm going to pull this quarterback out and put the substitute quarterback in. Now, assuming they have equal skill sets, equal abilities, taking a lot of assumptions there. But if they're equal, then we should be able to do that. This creates a function of X. Okay, now to find the max or the min, if it's a min problem, you are going to graph it. Now, could you distribute this out? Yes. And write it in descending order. Could you be like, oh, Julie, I know the vertex is always the min or the max. Yes, you could. So the opposite of B, right? The opposite of B all over 2A, you could do that to get the 1,000. And then you could sub it back in to get the output. But I'm going to graph it. But yes, you could. This is a quadratic. The vertex is the max or min. So if you want to do the opposite of B all over 2A, to get this, to get that 1,000, you can, and then you can sub it back in to this formula. So 1,000 and then 4,000 minus 2 times 1,000 to get the max. But I'm going to graph it to show you that. So give me a second. All right, I went ahead and graphed this, and as you can see, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not seeing stuff very well, and I keep, going out. Notice your X values are not very big. So let's go over here, and let's do 0, oops, maybe if it looks, let me type that in, 0. And your X value is the width of it. You only have what? How much fencing? 4,000. So, you know, if it's, I don't know, divide by 4 is 1,000. I could do a little bit higher than that. Okay. So let's see if that kind of helps. Yeah, a little bit, right? So then it's like, okay, now I can see what's going on a little bit. That's better. Okay. So remember, you can go over to your wrench and kind of see where things are at. So I am going to click on this point. There's your max. It's a local max, right? It's absolute in this case too, but it is 1,000 for your width and then 2 million for your overall area of that. And again, that is the same number. Here, let me take a screenshot here. If I, see if I can write on this guy. All right, we'll see if it lets me write nice. It probably won't be that pretty, but the opposite of B would be what? Negative 400 if it's multiplied out over 2 times A is a negative 4. Is that right? Oh, this was this 4,000? Yes, it was. That helps. Okay. Sorry. Opposite of B all over 2A, that's going to be 1,000. And then if I sub in my 1,000 into my original formula, I have 1,000 for my input. And then what else? 4,000 minus 2 times what? 1,000. So that's going to be 1,000, boy, times 2,000, which would give me a 2 with 6 zeros, right? So that would be my 2 million. So I can do it with the vertex formula opposite of B over 2A and then subbing the input back in to get it. But it is probably just a little bit faster to just click on that guy and get it that way. So that's up to you. All right. All right, I did a little editing there, so if it glitched funky on you, I apologize. Okay, so remember a quadratic. The inverse and isolated quadratic, remember, it's you bring it over equal to 0. Quadratics, we always want equal to 0, always. And then remember, factoring and multiplying out are inverses of each other, okay? So if it's all multiplied out equal to 0, right, that's 1. If you want to inverse that, it would be all factored out equal to 0. All right. So I brought it over to 0. Again, paint under my fingernail. I factored it. So my x-intercepts, whatever causes 0, the shift is 5. Whatever causes 0, shift is negative 2. It is not a negative, so I know this thing is not reflected. I could sub in 0 and know that it crosses down here to negative 10, but I didn't even label my y-axis because I don't even care about that. I care about when is the function either positive, when is the function above 0, or when is the function below 0, right? It's either below 0 or above 0. Okay. So if it's above 0, it's going to be up here, right? Because here's 0. The function is above 0. But notice I want my function to be below 0. I want it to be negative. See how I want the output to be negative? Well, that happens down here. I want this function to either equal 0 or be below 0. So I can just look at my graph and say, oh, from negative 2 to 5 has negative output. Okay, that's on a 2D graph. If you want to do just a one-dimensional graph, basically all you're doing is you're looking at the x-axis only. So these are not holes because it can equal. If it was just less than, you would have holes, okay? And then remember, you do test points. So you sub in something over here like a negative 3, sub in something in here like 0, sub in something over here like 6. And again, you don't have to do order of op, just type it in your calculator. So if I subbed in a negative 3, I would do a negative 3 squared minus negative 3 times negative 3 and what? Minus 10, enter. Okay, because, and when you sub in negatives, you need parentheses because you want your calculator to take a negative 3 times a negative 3. And if you don't do that, it won't do that. So just be cautious. So I would let my calculator do those for me. This has a positive output. This has positive output. I am saying, hey, when does this function have an output that is negative, less than 0? So that's here. And again, including the ends. So then your interval notation matches that guy. All right, again, I'm going to pause and go on decimals just so you can see this graph quick. All right, here we are. I graphed. I do not like to do inequalities on decimals where it shades it all. I don't want to do that. I'm going to graph my original function. Then I'm going to graph what it's equal to or less than or whatever 0, because I want to focus on this area. So let me just take a screenshot here of this. All right, so here's my graph. And so basically I'm like, okay, when is my function in this problem? It was what, less than 0? So here is when all my output, if I could draw with a mouse, woo, sorry, not very good. The function is negative down here, including these points, okay? So if I know those key points are what, -2, well, maybe, there we go. -2 gives me negative output, but so does everything else all the way to a +5. So there you go. Okay, most of you did pretty good on that one on the quiz, so that one went well. All right, good luck. Keep plugging away. Take care. Bye-bye.